in the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. Last Friday, we witnessed the live draw and pairing of teams and their moods. This morning's debate is the third debate in the quarterfinals. Later today, the final debate in these quarterfinals will be held. We will have also this afternoon the live draw for the semifinals, which will occur next week. Today, our esteemed judges are Mr. Delon Fraser, our chief judge. He's a distinguished Toastmaster. Delon has been a Toastmaster for over 10 years. He's a member of the One Country, One World Advanced Toastmasters Club and the Cacique Toastmasters Club. He has served and continues to serve in many leadership roles at clubs, area, division, and district levels. Mr. Fraser has judged numerous speech contests at various levels and has served as a judge for previous youth parliaments. He holds a master's degree in business administration, a Bachelor of Social Sciences degree in international relations, a bachelor's degree in law, and an advanced diploma in project management. Our next judge is Mrs. Melissa Dow Richardson, the Assistant Director of Sport, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. Ms. Dow Richardson is an alumna of St. Stanislaus College, the University of Guyana History and Law, University of the West Indies International Relations, the American University of Peace Studies, Psychology, and the Caribbean Leadership Program. She is a former multidisciplinary national athlete, playing table tennis and basketball at the highest level. Her sports credentials include Olympic certification in sports administration, World Anti-Doping Agency certified doping control officer, and Guyana's first and only level 2 female table tennis coach. She and I has a date on the tennis table. Mrs. Dow Richardson has a professional background in journalism, education, international relations, business management, community development, and of course, coaching. Our third judge today comes from our own National Assembly, Ms. Monette Garnett Christopher, who is the Chief Administrative Officer at Parliament Office. Mrs. Garnett Christopher has great expertise in administration and finance. She started her career at Queen's College as an economics teacher. She holds a Master's of Business Administration degree from the Australian Institute of Business and a Bachelor of Social Sciences degree in economics from UG. Mrs. Christopher has participated in several in-club and inter-club speech contests through the Cacique Toastmasters Club. She also performs several functions, including that of general evaluator and grammarian of table topics speeches. She believes that it is important to keep abreast with current affairs as a person is informed and updated about not only the status quo, but what is happening locally and globally. The proposing team today is Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. The Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group is a non-governmental organization registered under the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport. This youth organization is comprised of young, exuberant, benevolent, and resilient youth spanning the area from Zealous to Virginujan. The organization's aim is to promote, nurture, and cultivate a better generation through self-development, empowerment, and basic life skills training among youth in an inclusive society. Their three speakers today are led by Ms. Malika Russell, 24 years old, from Campbellville, Georgetown. The second speaker is Mr. Trevon Melville, 26 years old, from Hague, West Coast, Demerara. And Ms. Stewart, Narissa Stewart, 23 years old, from Virgin Nugent, West Coast Province. The opposing team is the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement. Members of this group are enthusiastic individuals who are passionate about community development. The group is involved in a wide range of voluntary activities, including job training. Their first speaker is Mr. Richard Biney, 22 years old, from Cummings Lodge. Their second speaker is Mr. Puran Dayal Omcharan, 32 years from industry. And their third speaker, Mr. Vikash Basdio, 33 years old, from industry also. Today's moot is human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. I now declare this debate open and call on the first speaker for the proposition, Ms. Malika Russell, Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. Ms. Russell, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable members here, I would like to address worthy opposition, listening audience, good morning. My team stands firmly in support of the move today that human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. I will first find the key terms. According to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, human trafficking or trafficking in person refers to the recruitment, transportation, harboring, or being in receipt of persons by means of force, use of force, trust, or other forms of coercion. It is having control over a person without his or her consent for the purpose of exploitation. Is not referred as intent and significant defined by Merriam-Webster is of measurably large amounts or six or noticeably or measurably large amounts and problem as a matter or situation regarded as unwelcome, unharmful, and needs to be dealt with and overcome. Our interpretation of the move today is that the act of human trafficking dehumanizes the victim and treats them as commodities. It strips them of their rights to choices, their freedom, as well as to determine their future. While it is a very serious crime, compared to the prevalence of other crimes in Guyana, it is insignificant to the crimes the law enforcement has to deal with. As the first speaker, I will examine the criteria for crimes to be established as human trafficking. The second speaker will look at Guyana's tier bracket as it relates to trafficking of persons, and the third speaker will compare other prevalence of crimes against human trafficking. As danger, in order for someone or an organization to be charged with human trafficking, three conditional criteria must be met. The Pan American Development Foundation clearly outlines these. One, the act, what is done through transport or transfer. Two, the meaning, how it is done through coercion, abduction, or without consent. And three, the purpose or why it is done for sexual exploitation, forced labor, or slavery. Listening audience, there are many misconceptions of human trafficking in our society. For example, migrant smuggling and human trafficking are often confused. The Guyana Times newspaper on June 18 reported that 10 persons were suspected to be victims of human trafficking. Victims of trafficking in persons slash migrant smuggling. However, migrant smuggling and human trafficking are not interchangeable terms. The U.S. Human Rights and Trafficking Office of the High Commissioner defines migrant smuggling as, and I quote, migrant smuggling involves the illegal facilitated movement across an international border, while abusive treatment or some form form of abusive treatment is involved, the purpose is to profit from the movement and not the exploitation of these persons. End of quote. The high influx of Haitians in Venezuela was observed by both previous and the current administration. However, neither was able to prove that these persons are being trafficked in Guyana rather than being human smuggled. Are we to assume that human trafficking is significant when there's limited proof of such? Further, worthy of opposition, how do we differentiate between a group of people that are traveling for tourism purposes, fantasy, or trafficking? Therefore, I reiterate our stance that human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Malaika. From the opposing team, their first speaker is Mr. Richard Bainey from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement. Mr. Bainey, you're on.
All protocols observed, Mr. Speaker, judges, my learned friend on the proposition bench. I rise to apprise you of a catastrophic, devastating phenomena our beloved land, Guyana, is currently involved in. I can only imagine that you're already much aware of the issue since it has filled the pages of our press recently. And I thank my friend on the proposition side for bringing the issue up. She termed it as human smuggling and not trafficking. But the issue is Guyana is being used as a transshipment point to facilitate human trafficking and smuggling, whereby persons are brought here and then make their way to other countries illegally because they can't go get entered legally. I thank her for bringing up the UNCDC definition, which includes transportation, transfer, harboring, receipt of people through force, fraud, or deception. The UNCDC noted that traffickers often use violence or fraudulent employment agencies and fake promises of education and job opportunities to trap and coerce their victims. I ask that you keep these words and key terms in mind as I show you the significant problem that Guyana is battling, that is human trafficking. Just yesterday, the Department of Public Information issued an article in which it highlighted that in 2020, Guyana reported 204 victims of human trafficking, a significant increase from the 105 cases reported in 2019. That's 99 more cases, even though a COVID pandemic where we're in it. Significant was the word they used to describe the increase. It's a significant increase of victims recorded, not a significant problem. And what about those cases that go unreported? Last week, the government of Guyana imposed a visa restriction on Haitian and Cuban nationals entering the country. And why? Why, you might ask? Why? It's right here. Why, you might ask? It is because they recognize that human trafficking is a significant problem in Guyana. The visa imposition was necessary, the government said, to tackle and avert Guyana being used as this transshipment point for human trafficking and smuggling. The June 25th edition of the Chronicle newspaper provides the statistics. It highlights that of 42,100 Haitians who arrived in Guyana between 2015 and June 17, 2021, only 3,913 have legally departed. Where is the 38,187 Haitian nationals who entered the country during this period? In November 2020, some 26 Haitian nationals were detained. Upon scrutiny, it was revealed that they provided an empty lot for their address. On June 14th, just this month, 10 Haitian nationals were found in a hotel in Berbice. Their personal belongings were taken from them by the person who brought them there. They don't even know. And our friends on the proposal bench will want to come here and try to tell us this is not trafficking, this is smuggling. But they will fail to tell us that persons who are smuggled are in most cases trafficked along the way. The U.S. Department of State Office to Monitor and Combat Trafficking in Persons, in its 2017 report, highlighted that people who are smuggled can be extremely vulnerable to human trafficking, abuse, or other crimes. More so, our own Home Affairs Minister, Mr. Robson Ben, in the June 29th edition of the Chronicle newspaper, explained that the two issues are conflated, and persons who are smuggled are exploited along the way, sometimes even abandoned. You turn to page 5 of the June 26th edition of the Sunday Chronicle and you find the Attorney General Anil Nandlal speaking about the issue. You open the letters to the editor in the June 30th edition. Citizens are writing about the issue. So, our government recognizes this problem, citizens recognize this problem, but the proposition will come here and tell us, no, it is not a problem. But by Guyana being a transshipment point, Guyana is Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bainey. The second speaker for the proposition is Mr. Trevon Melville. That the group is Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. Trevon, you are on.
Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, rise of the audience of human trafficking is a global phenomenon that knows no international border. It is within the digital country and society that its far-reaching and its pervasive consequences are quite tough. More than 130 countries are affected by human trafficking. But this, I am proud to say that Guyana has retained its still one ranking in the last trafficking of persons report by the United States Department of State released in June 2020. The replacement reflects the evaluation of a government action to combat trafficking assessed against specific criteria outlined in the Trafficking Victims Protection Act. It ranges from tier 1 to tier 3, with of course tier 3 being the absolute worst. Further, the U.S. Department of State noted, and I quote, governments that fully comply with minimum standard of tier 1 show that there is a limited or insignificant number of human trafficking cases. End of quote. Larger, the Huffington Post 2019 clearly outlines the severity of trafficking on an economy where the characteristics are as follows. One, you have relentless poverty, high unemployment rate, violence, civil turmoil, and the lack of human rights. Now, Mr. Speaker, take for example, taken from the very UN Department States Report 2020, it says that Venezuela, a tier 3 country, has a 94% of its citizens living in poverty, with an estimated 300% increase in human trafficking from 2016 to present. Human trafficking from 2016 to 2020. While in Guyana, an excerpt from the Guyana, taken from the Guyana's Budget and Policy Institute, in conjunction with the Guyana Police Force, has seen a 35.5% from 2016 to 2019 decrease in human trafficking, and an 18.7% of its citizens are affected, with 80.7% of its citizens being affected by poverty. Now, over a 7 years period, which is 2014 to 2021, present day, in Guyana, we have seen 86 persons charged for trafficking, but only 9 were convicted, as opposed to Venezuela's 99 indicted cases, which in just 1 year. Our dear friends on the opposition charged us to bring stand. Now, these information were only released when listing online. With the facts presented, do you think that Guyana has a significant problem with human trafficking, as opposed to countries whose figure surpasses Guyana's almost 9 times in a single year? Our contention today, Mr. Speaker, is not whether trafficking versus the trafficking person is a problem or not. Is the magnitude of the extremity. Hence, Mr. Speaker, we cannot, in good sense, go against our stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevon. The second speaker from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement is Mr. Purandayal Omachuran. Purandayal, it is your turn to make your presentation.
Mr. Speaker, respected judges, members of the opposing team, and audience, good morning. Mr. Speaker, our opponent thinks human trafficking is not a significant problem because Guyana has a tier 1 status, meaning few cases of human trafficking. But judges, the number of official reports does not reflect its severity. There are many cases that goes unreported. This isn't my opinion, judges. The U.S. National Institute of Justice states this is a frequent occurrence worldwide. In its 2020 article titled "Gaps in Reporting Human Trafficking" includes insignificant content. Even in the 2020 Trafficking in Persons report on Guyana by the U.S. Department of State suggests the restrictiveness of reporting human trafficking. Respected judges, why would there be unreported cases of human trafficking in Guyana? This is because a lack of presence by the relevant authority. The article by the Stabroek News dated the 4th of July 2020, titled Guyana Maintains Tier 1 Ranking in Efforts Against Human Trafficking, reported because of the limited government presence in interior mining communities, the full extent of sex and labor trafficking is unknown in these areas. Honorable judges, when has human freedom become an insignificant problem? Or opponents seem to think so. According to the International Organization of Immigration 2010 second edition, assessment of trafficking in persons in the Caribbean region, traffickers prevent victims from reporting these situations by physical and psychological means, such as violence, threats against family members, withholding identification documents, and the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, even the government has recognized the significance of unreported cases of human trafficking. And to combat this major issue, judges, hotlines were created. According to the Guyana Chronicle, 18th of November 2020 editorial, there are even Spanish hotlines and Facebook pages for international victims. Guyana Department of Information 2021 highlighted a workshop done in March of this year, 2021, by traffic ranks and patrol officers of Guyana to identify human trafficking victims. Honorable judges, isn't it of significance when our government spends millions of our tax dollars? According to the 2020 Trafficking in Persons report, this government gave $60 million to non-governmental shelters to provide housing, food, training, and psychological treatment for adult victims of trafficking. In concluding, the government's reaction towards unreported cases is established in the Combating Trafficking of Persons Act 2005, where provisions is made in the Act to address potential causes of unreported cases. Example, Part 2, Number 4 of the Act deems unlawful withholding of identification papers a crime. So, Mr. Speaker, how can our opponents still argue there isn't a significant human trafficking problem in Guyana? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Purandayal. The third speaker from Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. The proposition is Ms. Norissa Stewart. Norissa, it is your turn.
Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you all. Human trafficking in Guyana is indeed not a significant problem. To help you understand what a significant crime problem looks like in Guyana, I present to you a 2019 UN article titled Guyana's First National Survey on Gender-Based Violence launched, which found that 1 in every 2 women have or will experience intimate partner violence, abbreviated IPV, in their lifetime. The last census was conducted in 2012, because there are 375,150 women in Guyana. It therefore means 187,575 of Guyana's women population and 25% of Guyana's entire population is likely to experience IPV. You may be asking yourself, to what then is the relevance of this information? Well, allow me to provide you with the statistics for human trafficking in Guyana. The Counter-Trafficking in Persons Unit in 2020 recorded 225 suspected victims. This gives us a mere 0.003% when put against Guyana's population. Listening audience, when we have 50% of Guyana's women population being exposed to IPV, compared to a mere 0.003% of trafficked persons, tell me, which do you think is prevalent, indicating its significance in Guyana? To give you a better perspective as regards the nationalities breakdown in 2020, 54.6% of the 225 victims were Venezuelans. That's 123 persons, and according to the Refugee and Migrant Response Plan 2021, Guyana is estimated to host 28,000 Venezuelans. Hence, 126 persons will result in only 0.4% of the Venezuelans being exposed to trafficking in Guyana. Additionally, the second highest nationality of alleged victims sourced in the Guyana police force were 23 Dominicans. Coming in closely behind, we have Guyanese at 22. Given the statistics that were provided earlier, one can imagine what low percentage these values will result in when put against the general public, which poses the question, is human trafficking in Guyana really significant? Of course not. Ladies and gentlemen, we the affirmative team are not here today to insinuate that human trafficking in itself is a continuous crime that robs our women, men, and children of their dignity, but rather to prove to you that the prevalence of this crime renders it insignificant in Guyana. In closing, we encourage everyone to be alert, recognize it, expose it, and most importantly, report it, so we can prevent this act of human trafficking from becoming a significant problem in Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Norissa Stewart. And the final speaker this morning from the opposition Cummings Lodge Youth Movement is Mr. Vikash Basdeo. Vikash, it is your turn to make your presentation.
Protocols observed, Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly, most esteemed judges, Lord friends of the proposition, general audience. I rise as the third speaker to continue my team's argument and refute the erroneous arguments of the proposition. In my argument today, I will briefly outline two forms of human trafficking evident in Guyana and debunk the fallacy that human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. Most erudite judges, the U.S. State Department Trafficking in Persons reports for the year 2018, 2019, and 2020 had an entire section on Guyana pertaining to the scourge that is a pandemic of the 21st century, human trafficking. One type of human trafficking that was identified as present in Guyana is forced labor. Yes, forced labor, and it was considered as a major issue within the fast-growing extractive and service industries, where traffickers exploited victims in labor trafficking within the mining, agriculture, forestry, domestic service, and in shops. Further, the reports stated that the full extent of trafficking in the interiors of Guyana is unknown. I am sure that many persons in our audience today can testify where they saw or know of cases where persons are victims of forced labor. And that is why we maintain our position that human trafficking is a significant problem in Guyana. Most esteemed judges, the second type of human trafficking that was identified as present in Guyana is that of sex trafficking. I am sure most of us can remember in June 2015, it was reported in the Stabroek newspaper that 27 women were found to be victims of human trafficking in Martica. Further, in May 2018, Guyana Chronicle papers reported that the police had busted a trafficking in personal ring where 16 females were being used for sex trafficking. Honorable Speaker, reverend judges, members of the audience, it is very unfortunate that the members of the proposition has not seen the light to understand that human trafficking is a significant problem in Guyana. In conclusion, most erudite judges, I am certain that our bewildered friends of the proposition, who, after hearing all of the irrefutable evidence presented by our team today, are ready to change their farcical position on the moot and agree with us that human trafficking is a significant problem in Guyana. I rest my case.
Thank you very much, Vikash, from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have two groups, the Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group and the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement, debating the moot, human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. And we've heard the initial presentations from the three speakers on both sides of the moot. I will now ask our Public Relations Officer of the Parliament, Mr. Yannick December, to talk a little bit more about the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. Yannick, over to you.
Here at the Parliament Office. I'm also a member of the Planning Committee for the Speaker's National Youth. Hello everyone, I'm Yannick December, Public Relations Officer here at the Parliament Office. I'm also a member of the Planning Committee for the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition, a competition which serves as a feeder into the 6th Annual Youth Parliament 2021. Youth Parliament was first hosted by the National Assembly in 2015 under the speakership of the Honourable Raphael Trotman. This year, Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honourable Mansour Nadir, thought it best to widen participation to allow more youths to become knowledgeable of the institution of Parliament. 16 youth groups from across our educational districts are participating in this competition. 8 of those groups will advance to participate in Youth Parliament 2021. What's in it for you, you may ask? Trophies, plaques, cash prizes, tablets, and a laptop for the best debater in the final debate. The final debate will be held at 2 p.m. on Friday, the 9th of July 2021. We are pleased to have you tune into this competition and promise that you will have robust debates from our debaters. I will now hand you over to the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Honourable Mansour Nadir.
Thank you very much, Yannick. As we give our two teams a little bit more time to prepare their thoughts for the rebuttals, I want to remind you that today's moot is human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. The two teams in this debate of the quarterfinals are Cummings Lodge Youth Movement, which is the opposition, and Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group, which is the proposition. We have had 3 speakers from both sides of the moot making their presentations, and we are giving them a few more minutes to gather their thoughts together for their rebuttals. In the meanwhile, let me introduce once again our judges for this morning's debate. One of our judges is Ms. Melissa Dow Richardson, Assistant Director of Sports. A WADA, that is the World Anti-Doping Agency certified officer, and she is Guyana first and only level 2 female table tennis coach. Another one of our judges is Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher, who is the Chief Administrator Institute of Business. She has been a distinguished member of the Toastmasters, and she believes firmly that our people, especially our young people, need to be well informed about events locally and globally. Our chief judge today is Mr. Delon Fraser, who himself is a distinguished Toastmaster. Delon has been a Toastmaster for over 10 years. He has served at many levels in the Toastmasters clubs, the Cacique Toastmaster Club, and the One Country, One World Advanced Toastmasters Club. Delon has judged many, many similar competitions. He has a master's degree. As Mr. December has said, we do have an exciting debate and we are waiting for the exciting rebuttals. Today, let me just read you some of the comments from social media. And we have Mr. Harish Ishu Dayal giving good wishes to everyone. So too is Tony Ann Hendricks and Nave Morias. I hope I'm pronouncing the names correctly. Also, Yavindra Ramsarup gives his best wishes to both teams on this very important topic which is being debated. Dwayne Andres and Leon Bailey Beaton says it's been a wonderful job, participants. Our own Member of Parliament, Mr. Ganesh Mahipal, who is the opposition acting chief whip, says, these young people are doing an excellent job. Makes me remember my days when I was younger. I thought he was young. Our young people must continue to move from strength to strength. I agree, Honorable Member. Let us continue to build these youth groups and engage in meaningful activities like these. So those are some of the comments we've had on social media. The quarterfinal matches started on Tuesday and we had two winners. The Ornock Sport Club from Port Kaituma and the Queenstown Youth Group from Queenstown Essequibo. And those two groups are proceeding to the semifinals. The winner from this morning's debate and this afternoon's debate will join the Ornock Sport Club and the Queenstown Youth Group in the semifinals, which will be held on Tuesday right here. Now for the rebuttals. Is everyone ready? See, the judges are ready, and now it's the time for the two teams, the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement and the Small Step Big Impact Youth Group, to have their rebuttals. We will start with the opposing group, which is led by Mr. Richard Bainey, 22 years old from Cummings Lodge. Richard, you have 5 minutes to impress everyone with your rebuttal. Go ahead, Richard.
Mr. Speaker, host Derby judges, my learned friends on the opposing side. Call it what you may, migrant smuggling or human trafficking, one victim is too many, and Guyana does have a significant trafficking in persons issue. How convenient is it that you come here and tell us that by having a tier 1 status, which was reported in a US report, Guyana does not have a significant trafficking in persons issue. But you forgot to tell us that in that very same US report, it showed a significant increase of victims who are trafficked. 99! 99, not 1, not 2, but 99. Is that not significant? The same agency that issued the report that you are hollering about tier 1. So they have not. The same agency as well also differentiates between migrant smuggling and human trafficking. Clear definition that is registered in law. So they have not taken into consideration the 38,000 plus cases of smuggling of Asian nationals alone that we have experienced from 2015 to now. They have not taken into account unreported cases, which my second speaker have showed you is also a significant problem. I hear my learned friends speak of other crimes. What is the cost of a life to you, my friends? Is there any such thing as more significant crimes? You mentioned the Guyana police force being occupied with other crimes. Do you know how many cases of trafficking in persons goes unreported? My second speaker told you. So now you know why the police force don't deal with those crimes. He also told you of the many mechanisms set up in the country, millions of dollars spent to prevent trafficking and smuggling. Is that not significant? Why will the government place so emphasis imposing visas and setting up mechanisms and hotlines if it is not a significant problem? Huh? They call it human smuggling, fancy words. But what is the whereabouts of the Haitian nationals that cannot be accounted for? 38,000 plus of them. Where are they? What is their current well-being? Is that not significant? My third speaker told you of forced labor, which constitutes trafficking in person. Some people don't even know that they're forced into labor. But I come back to the definition of trafficking, which the first speaker on the proposing bench, Mr. Stewart, would have mentioned. And Ms. Russell, sorry. And that definition includes transport, harboring. But you come to tell us that by Guyana being a transshipment point, where persons come to the country and the country facilitates them going to other countries to be involved in God knows what, because you have not told us what they do after they are smuggled. You did not tell us that at all. So if this is the transshipment point that facilitates in the overarching scheme, does that not contribute to smuggling and trafficking overall? Huh? Does that not contribute to trafficking, and is that not a significant problem? Our country is involved in a significant problem. Whether it's at the start, the middle, or the end of the problem, it is involved. The cases of the reported trafficking in person cases might be small, and we have explained to you why that may be so. You have to see the bigger picture. If you have a destination to help traffickers transport their vehicles, then how could you come and say this is not significant enough to contribute to a significant problem? Huh? Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Richard. And now for the proposition. Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group, and their lead speaker, Ms. Malaika Russell. Malaika, it is your turn to impress the judges with your rebuttal.
Distinguished judges, listening audience, members of the opposition, this morning, our opposition tried to convince us that human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. However, my colleagues and I have convinced you, and I'm further clear from exceptions that were thrown into the argument by our opposition. I will begin my argument by saying the first speaker said referred to an article being written as last week. However, this article never stated that victims were trafficked, but rather they were. This article, well, this situation is still a matter that is still being diagnosed as to whether these victims were smuggled or trafficked in Guyana. The unreported cases does not prove that they were. These unreported cases does not say that these because the cases are being unreported, it does not say that it's occurring. However, I would like to reiterate that human smuggling and human trafficking, they are not interchangeable terms. And remind, right? It says migrant smuggling been involved with illegal facilitated movement across borders. However, the profit gain is from the movement and not the eventual exploitation, as the case of human trafficking. End of quote. The second speaker highlighted that many cases goes unreported. So if and because they're unreported, how can we prove that this problem is happening by way of our judicial system allows for one to be convicted, prosecuted, and convicted and sentenced for this crime? Again, I believe that the opposition is talking about different crimes. In order for us to establish a crime as human for our judicial system, the act must be clear what is done, how it's done, and the purpose as to why it's done. Where the second speaker also mentioned that the proposition is assuming that the matter is not serious. However, this is not what we're saying. We do believe that human trafficking is a very serious, it's not an insignificant one because of the prevalence at which it's occurring. Furthermore, the second speaker tried to mislead our prestigious judges by saying $6 million were allocated in the budget, when in actuality, there was $30 million that were allocated for human trafficking. The second speaker claimed that Guyana has unreported case, but has also failed to provide us with statistical evidence as
Malaika, we will have to, Malaika.
in the article that Guyana experienced a decrease from human trafficking from 2019 to from 2017, sorry, to 2019, with a 35.5% decrease. Our position today is to say that human trafficking is not a significant problem. Therefore, I reiterate our stance that human trafficking is a very serious trafficking crime, and it's for crimes to be considered to be human trafficking. Persons have to be the act has to be done by means of abduction, coercion, or use some amount of force to keep them. We cannot say for a fact that these Haitians and Venezuelans are being held against their will in Guyana if there is no proof to assume that they're being held against their will. Again, I ask, how do we differentiate between people that are traveling for tourism purposes, trafficking, or transiting if there's insufficient evidence to tie it to the crime of being human trafficking? Therefore, we believe that human trafficking is not a significant problem. It does not speak to the serious. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Malaika. The lead speaker from Small Steps, Big Impact Youth Group. There you have it. Two teams for today. The mood being human trafficking is not a significant problem in Guyana. The two teams, Cummings Lodge Youth Movement and the Small Step Big Impact Youth Group. The Cummings Lodge Youth Movement was the opposing group, the Small Steps Big Impact Youth Group, the proposing group. Our judges today are Ms. Malaika Dow Richardson, who's our Assistant Director of Sport, Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher, the Chief Administrative Officer at Parliament Office, and Mr. Delon Fraser, Distinguished Toastmaster and one of our judges for previous youth parliaments. They are now consulting with each other to come up with the final scores. We are going to listen to each one of the judges, make some comments, and then Mr. Delon Fraser, our chief judge, will make the announcements. Let me remind you that this is the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. We have had, as of now, 11 debates out of the 15 debates that are in this competition. 8 debates in the first round, eliminating 8 groups. The quarterfinals, which we have just seen the third debate in the quarterfinals. We've had 3 debates, and we have the final debate in the quarterfinals this afternoon at 2 p.m. when we will have 2 more exciting groups making presentations. On Tuesday, July the 6th at 10 a.m., we will see the 2 semifinals. The first of the 2 is at 10, the second at 2 p.m. And the finals will be at 2 p.m. next Friday, July 9th. We want to say a special word of thanks to the Honorable Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Charles Ramson, and the Ministry itself, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, who at very short notice worked with us to identify the 16 youth groups from 8 administrative regions. We did not have the opportunity to get Region 9 and Region 7 connected. They were in the emergency situations with flooding, and so next year they will have an opportunity to participate. We want to make the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition an annual one. Those groups that participated and did not make it into the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals will have another opportunity in a not too distant future to participate again. As our public relations officer has said, these debates will identify participants into our annual youth program, our annual youth parliament, which will happen in the second week of August of this year. The annual youth parliament for the National Assembly started in 2015. But prior to that, the Honorable Member, Mr. Kwame McCoy, the Honorable Minister, he had been a pioneer, and because of his vision and leadership, for decades before, we have had youth parliaments in our country. We're giving our judges a few more moments. My thanks and appreciation to the organizing team, led by our chairperson, Ms. Carlotta Charles, for organizing this competition and working continuously to ensure that it could be hosted every week, and working towards pulling off the finals. The finals will be held at the National Convention Center. No, those of you who want to attend wouldn't be able to attend. It's very limited in terms of the participation. The participation will see all of the 48 contestants present at the convention center, and it will witness live the finals between the 2 groups. This afternoon, there will be a live draw pairing the 4 teams that are advancing into the semifinals, and they will also be paired with the 2 moods this afternoon. Next week brings the curtains down on the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. It has certainly been exciting this morning. We're now seeing even keener competition because a lot of the persons in these quarter round matches, they have won best debater in the preliminary rounds, and so we are being treated to exciting debates great research, and more importantly, coherent analytical deductions on and around the moods. The judges are ready. The chief judge is about to get into his seat, and we are about to hear from our judges as the judges make their final decisions. Let me remind you, every single team. I know contestants, it's very tense. I don't think the young man folding his arms from the opposing team is doing the strong man. I think he's just nervous. All of us are, yes. But it's exciting. We have the blue team against the white team. The small steps, big impact youth group from West Demerara and the Cummings Lodge youth movement from Cummings Lodge. Our chief judge is in place. I'll now ask Ms. Melissa Dow Richardson, one of our judges, to give her comments.
Good morning, Mr. Speaker, fellow judges, staff of the Parliament Office, to our two debating teams, and to everyone tuned into this very exciting and impactful activity. We really must commend the debaters on both sides, the proposition and the opposition, for their presentations this morning. This is a very controversial and very topical issue in our country, certainly in the Caribbean region and throughout the world. So it was very encouraging to see the references to local data, to regional data, and to international data. There were statistics provided and references to newspaper articles, the way that government perceives this particular issue, as well as the relevant members of society. So both sides, the opposition and the proposition, looked at it in a way that tells us that you are very, very conscious of the issue, but we have a ways to go. I want to commend the reference to the act that deals with trafficking in persons, but we could have had more references to that act. This is a very important piece of legislation, and so it would have helped some of the analysis if there was more references to the act. But by and large, very good presentations on both sides, and I would like to congratulate you for your work and wish you well in the rest of the competition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dow Richardson. Some comments from one of our other judges, Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher. Monet?
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. Congratulations on your presentations as well. The issue this morning I see is a very significant one, especially since there's an act in place. And I think because the act is in place, you should have been able to determine whether those measures, because there are preventative measures in the act, you should have been able to determine whether those measures were implemented, if they're effective. And so I think that would have been able to strengthen your positions. There are also a lot of training across all the regions, focal point training. You should have been able to also examine those trainings and to see whether those officers have been able to exercise what they've learned during the training in combating this situation. There are also a lot of collaboration with non-governmental organizations and the ministry. I haven't heard anything mentioned with that too. So in all, I think that since Guyana is tier 1 ranking, I think that works have been done. So you should have been able to prove to us whether those works were effective. And although I think with your delivery, it was a little muffled on one side of the team, I think probably your microphone was a little low, so we couldn't hear you so clearly. In terms of articulation, there were a lot of movements. One of the presenters he was, moving all over the place with his documents and so on. So you have to be careful in moving forward. Just ensure that you learn your presentation and avoid all those movements. It's a sign of distraction from what you're presenting to us. But nevertheless, it was a good session this morning, and again, congratulations, and may the best team move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Christopher, and our Chief Judge, Mr. Fraser. Chief Judge?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I first would like to thank my fellow judges for this morning's debate. It was not an easy task, and I think they would have given their own remarks quite modestly. So for my bit and my comments, I thought that the debaters, they had great structure, they understood the moot, and that they were well on their way to presenting to us today. A few observations that I have, and these are that we need to be careful when we're defining certain terms in the moot, and if there is a legislation, because of course it will differ in definition from time to time, the key terms, it is always good to look to see what the legislation states. And in our we do have a Trafficking in Persons Act, and of course in that act we would have given a perfect definition, or a definition that was adopted by Guyana, so that you can use within your arguments. The other thing that I noted is that indeed, like Ms. Monette mentioned, is that there were a bit of just too much gesticulation, and of course that indeed take away from a presenter, as it would cause the judges to focus more on the jest rather than to actually listen to what the presenter is saying. While one team had great cohesion and structure, the other team was a bit lacking in that we as judges, we knew what the first speaker was talking about, what the second speaker was talking about, what the third speaker was going to talk to us about. And we didn't get this from the other side with respect to the structure and how that all flowed in quite nicely. The other thing is the interpretation of the moot. Because this moot was so shaky, like what one of my judges would describe it as, it meant that you had to give us an interpretation. After redefining, after looking at the definitions, after giving us your own understanding of those definitions, you then interpret the moot to mean what. And we thought that this was very much absent from both teams. And as you go forward, please ensure that after you define, you give an interpretation. So that will give us judges an understanding as to where your arguments will be going. Last but not least, I found that some presenters were not so confident. Their comfortability level in presenting was lacking this morning. And I don't know why, because we've seen you present it before. So it's not a case of being nervous before the judges. I don't know what was the reason, but I encourage you to please channel that negative energy into positive words as you stand and you present. Last and surely not least, when you are giving us facts, you need to now marry the facts to your argument, not just to state it out there. So you tell us what are the types, but you did not marry the type as to how it become a significant issue. And a lot of you downplay the word significant. I don't know why, but I have not, and the judges have not heard it throughout your presentation. With that being said, there were a few misconceptions as well, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to clear up just one of it, and that is that there is a trafficking in person unit within the Guyana Police Force, and they do deal with trafficking in persons matters, and they do have stats that can be referred because it is normally stated at every presentation that they have. So it is a serious crime, and it is stated there. Mr. Speaker, it was a very hard task today to judge this debate, and we've had one team scoring 261.5 points, while the other team scored 277 points. The team that won this debate this morning is, you're nervous, is the opposition. The opposition, the judge thought, won the debate this morning with 277 points. Congratulations to you, the opposition. The best debater, Mr. Speaker, was another issue, because for the first time sitting here as a judge with my judges, we were not able to come up with a single person to be the best speaker, but rather 2 persons tied. And those 2 persons are the first speaker of the proposition, Ms. Malika Russell, as well as the first speaker of the opposition, Mr. Richard Bani. Congratulations to you both. As you move forward, I would recommend that you take the recommendations from the judges so that you can become a better speaker, and so you can only grow from here. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Chief Judge. Thank you very much, our judges. Thank you, our teams. Congratulations to both teams, and congratulations to Malika, Richard, and the winning team, the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement. Thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day.